Before this video even begins, seeing as my review won't be reviewy, I just want to make it known that I do not like this anime, I would not recommend it, and if I were to rate it out of 10, it would get a 4. Bye. ASMR. This video is a continuation of a review I started in one of my previous videos. If you are interested in the first part, the video will be linked below and in the description of that video. You should find a timestamp leading you to the start of the review.
1, 2, 1.
At the beginning of this review, I mentioned I was only going to talk about episode 11 and 12, which are the worst episodes this series has to offer. But after some digging, I found some scummy shit to do with the beginning of this anime and its creator, specifically relating to its Kickstarter. If what I found is true, it means that this anime scams you out of your time, and it actually scams some people out of their money. Before we jump into this Kickstarter shenanigans, I want to finish off where I left off with the review. From where we left off, our two groups of characters had finally met because everyone, including the ceiling, had given up on this anime. Now, it being Sam's turn to use the brain cell shared between these characters, she uses it to quickly grab the prince and head straight to the door, seemingly making the first intelligent decision in this episode. As Sam and the prince escape, you are forced to realize how terrible the lip sync in this anime is. The only movements the mouths make in this anime are open and closed. There is no attempt to synchronize what they say, whether it's in sub or in dub.
Sam? What the hell? Who are these guys and what are you doing here?
They're my travel companions, and we're here for you, Kelby.
But who told you to follow me?
During the escape, Philly the Kid tries to enact revenge on the kingdom that killed his parents by killing its prince. His first attempt was thwarted because he tried to hide the gun from Sam as she turned around. Animation wise, she clearly saw it, but I guess was supposed to believe she failed to see the story wise. His second attempt, he is clearly seen struggling to pull the trigger at the prince by Casey, but she somehow just ignores it as well as he tells her to go help some other escapees. Because of Philly's suggestion, Casey goes to help Odin and the good assassin lady. The good assassin lady asks for some fluid from Casey. We're supposed to believe this is not essential to her normal operations because she just gives it away easily. They throw it, it starts to gas up, surrounding the evil assassin lady, meaning she's right in the middle of this gas, and they blow that shit in and come. Uh-oh. With an explosion looking that wild, you'd expect that bitch's titties toasted right off. But just like everything else in this anime, it is horrible at its job. She is perfectly fine, no scratches. She jumps right out of the flames, attacks Odin as everyone else runs towards the hole. The attack makes Odin lose his balance and he trips over some railing. Now, seeing as this bitch just survived Hiroshima, even if Odin fell from the Eiffel Tower, I would think he would just get right back up. So why she doesn't finish him off and decides to just smile over the railing and move on makes no sense. No one here decides to finish anyone off. It is done multiple times during these two episodes. His third attempt, he makes a really loud clicking noise, alerting Sam now that he's about to kill the prince. Why at one point he's hiding from Sam, and then at another point he's making it known that he's going to shoot, is so stupid. Now it seems whoever programmed Sam was not in possession of the brain cell during the process, because while Phil the Kid is pointing a gun at the prince, she takes so long to decide to protect him because Philly, a well-known criminal, is in her friend logs, even though the prince is her prime objective. During the time she takes, Philly could build a tower, break it down, build it up again, and fucking snipe the prince from the top. Okay, so the show is trying to show Sam having some kind of moral dilemma, but the writers are forgetting that one dude is an immortal outlaw pointing a gun at another dude who is a child. The balance is not there. There's no moral dilemma here. Plus, Sam's programming should take over because the prince, the kid, is her prime objective. So this kind of stupid decision-making thing they're trying to show ignores all the logic the anime has presented to us. As if the situation wasn't already lacking in sense, the show decides to share the stupidity and let the prince open his mouth, and the first thing he decides to do when he does is insult Sam. Yes, the person who just saved his life, the person who is currently trying to save his life even though she is failing. Since the very beginning, they have been showing us how Sam and the prince are such good friends. So why the prince is so upset at Sam in this situation doesn't make any sense. You might think this is him trying to get Sam out of harm's way, but then he says this.
You need to know? You're just a robot. You don't have needs.
But
Where does the prince's hatred for Sam come from? Let's not forget that while this stupid fucking argument is going on, Philly the kid has a gun pointed at the prince, Sam has seemed to have forgotten her prime objective, and the prince seems to be only focused on shitting on Sam. How is any of this defensible? That brings me to another point. A big defense for this anime is that it comes from a black creator. I think supporting black creators is really important, but I also think you have to be honest when you're sharing stuff like this. Coming into this review, I was still going to recommend this anime no matter how much I shit on it. It could only help the anime. Season 2 could be much better, and it would also help many other black creators in the industry. This anime's only selling point was that it came from a black creator, but the picture the creator has painted of himself by how badly he handled the Kickstarter has made sure that no matter how much I want to see black anime thrive in the industry, I cannot support him. Alright, back on topic. The assassins have had enough time to regroup, and they ambush Philly from behind, killing him. But before he dies, he empties his magazine, sending one of the assassin's attacks towards the prince. Somehow, the good assassin lady teleports from one side of the room to the other, saving the prince but dying in his stead. The anime tries to make us feel sorry for the prince and the dead lady, but first of all, she tried to kill the prince a few episodes before, and the prince is being a dick right now for no reason. You can't relate to these characters in this situation. The assassins just stand there and give everyone enough time to air out their feelings, rather than tying up Philly before he wakes up or capturing the prince. Philly resurrects a few seconds later, but before anything can happen, Nine, the samurai from a few episodes ago, makes a cliche anime entrance. If your brain is off, you think this entrance is cool, but a second of thought will make you realize that Nine has been sitting somewhere, watching people die, waiting for the coolest moment to make an entrance. Because of Nine's entrance and everyone's reduced brain functionality, the assassins have enough time to capture the prince and run out the door without anyone noticing until Nine makes it known to them. Odin comes back questioning where the prince is, but because of the timing, it looks like you can still see people running out of the door. If this scene was switched with the scene right after it, it would make more sense.
Your ass is back here!
What have you done with the prince?
I hate to bother you, little lady, but you got any beer that don't taste like piss?
Your ass is back here!
I hate to bother you, little lady, but you got any beer that don't taste like piss?
What have you done with the prince?
So the assassins have a ship, but before they get into it, they give Casey a few seconds to explain it. Everyone just pauses to give Casey a second to explain it.
with red-lipped rodents, mega lightning thrusters.
Once Casey's done, everyone remembers what they were supposed to do. The assassins get onto the ship, close it, and start off. Sam and Philly try to chase after it. Philly jumps onto it, and Sam just watches as they fly away. And right before the end of the episode, Sam is shown going into Cannon Buster mode. This mode is supposed to be cool and whatever, the hypest part of the anime, the rage moments. This is something you come to realize about the anime. It doesn't follow the rules it sets for itself. You put people in an anime, but they don't act like people. You put robots in an anime, but they don't follow that programming. You put Cannon Buster mode, which is supposed to activate when friends are in danger, but it doesn't always activate. You start to realize that things only happen when the writers feel like they've knocked off some points on their cliche anime checklist. The writers have picked pieces, but they don't know how to put them together. They want to put emotional moments wherever, just so that they can lead up to a rage moment. But they don't know how to lead up to emotional moments, making everything from the beginning to end feel really awkward. They want to make an adventure anime like Samurai Champloo, thinking that every episode is just random events thrown at the characters until they reach the end. But they don't realize that those events are meant to show us who these characters are and how these events will change them when they reach their destination. They are not the same characters you started off with. Once you recover from the whiplash, the unnatural shifting between emotional, raging and action this anime gives you, you'll be left asking why you had to watch any of that when nothing comes of it. Now on episode 12 we'll have to speedrun it, but every time you ask yourself why this is happening, remember that if I did have an explanation, I would have given it to you. Maybe you can come up with your own. This episode you notice that the writers will make characters pick the worst decisions just to keep the episode from ending early. The assassins have the prince in their ship and are already in the air. They could simply just fly off to their destination, but because Philly is holding on, they decide to fly in circles. They don't even think about shaking him off on their way to their destination. You could say that maybe they're waiting for their teammates who are still down there, but then why are they already in the air? Shouldn't they have kept on the ground until their teammates were done? There are way more fights in this episode, but they're pointless. There's a scene where the prince tries to attack one of the assassins. He screams right before his attack and is instantly disarmed. And that's the end of that interaction. It has no lasting effects. That's the same with most of the fights. After something happens or the people involved in the fight are separated, there are no lasting effects. Everyone just goes and does their own thing. At the end of the episode, it's offhandedly mentioned that Sam was reprogrammed to defend the prince. So it's kind of jarring when you see her focus on trying to kill Philly rather than saving the prince. It gets worse when you realize that to kill Philly, she's shooting directly at the ship the prince is on, meaning she could possibly kill him in the process. Sam's cannon buster mode has been shown to only activate when her friends are in danger. But in this episode, she's the one putting her friends in the most danger. When Casey enters Bessie the Mecha, which are both registered in Sam's friendship logs, she fires directly at them when they are trying to stop her from shooting at the ship. Towards the middle of the episode, they reveal something big about Sam. Some kind of rage moment reveal, but the way they lit to it is to literally have Casey and Bessie dig a hole in the dirt and put Sam there for a few minutes. Sam stays there, forgetting about saving the prince, forgetting about eliminating Philly. She sits in the dirt until the writers want her to come out. There's some plot points so forced into the anime, the writers give up on making it realistically work. For example, Philly's guns. Throughout the episode, Philly has 2 guns. One gun he emptied in the previous episode, and one gun we can presume has a full clip. But whenever he needs to shoot someone, he's mysteriously only left with the empty gun for a comedic moment where he pulls the trigger and there's a click sound with no shot and he's killed. Then the second that scene is done, Philly is back with 2 guns.
Huh?
Within the last episode, Philly has died at least 3 times. Plot-wise, it's useless. He dies for the most stupid reasons. Comedically, Philly's death has already been played to death. We have seen him die at least once per episode from the beginning of the season. After Philly falls off the ship, Casey tries to stop her. Now, rather than flying off now that you finally got rid of Philly, they decide that they need to fight Casey and Bessie and turn their ship into a giant robot. Start to see the pieces, why everything has been so stupid. The writers are looking for a final fight, and it finally happened. Sam comes out of the dirt and transforms into a giant robot. Fights are way more intense when the plot has given the viewer reasons to care. So why am I supposed to care about Sam when she's looking for the prince who's right by her feet? Why am I supposed to care about what the bad guys are doing when they jumped out of their only means of escape? The only thing backing the fight is the writer, who wants a big giant robot fight at the end of his anime. After the fight, Philly manages to knock out the assassin and get the prince back. The prince who he has died multiple times just to try and kill. But then he just changes his mind. Once Sam is convinced to turn into a final form, they go into Gaara's keep to explain what the journey was all about, why they needed to come to this place. And they finally reveal the secret. Bitch, they need a season 2. The assassin lady wakes up, yoinks the prince and gets the fuck out of there. And they begin their journey to find the prince again. So what was that Gaara's keep that was so important? Never explained. The anime will keep on writing itself into problems. And rather than writing a cohesive way out, they choose either stupidity or bending reality. Questions like, what's the point of hiding Sam's capabilities from her? What happened in Why isn't Odin made aware that Sam is also a protector? Why is Sam allowed to enter anyone into the animation? Why does Odin decide to use the blunt side of his sword? Why did Nine decide to follow them secretly? What kind of danger triggers Sam's bigger cannon? What kind of mental disorder does Philly suffer from? Shooting missiles through the ship she thinks the prince is on We'll save stop chasing after the prince to talk about Philly's. Why does the prince continue following the assassin even though it's shown that he can stop running whenever he feels the need to? How did Odin leave his sword in the grave but also have it when he's walking off? He's going to save the fucking Death Star laser. Wouldn't he need whatever is in Brigar's keep to save the kingdom and save the prince?
It's full of surprises. But then, that must mean...
Pardon me, Defender.
But that must mean what? He never talks about that again and just continues saying other shit about Cannon Busters. I understand that most of these things could be answered in Season 2. But when most of Season 1 was spent on plot lines that, like most things in this anime, have no lasting effect, you come to understand that these questions exist not because they were being saved for Season 2. They exist because the writer doesn't care about what is in his anime. The writer only cares that he has made an anime, and nothing represents that more than the handling of the Cannon Busters Kickstarter. 2014, Sean Thomas kickstarted a pilot that would adapt his comic book Cannon Busters. Within a 30-day funding period, it hit and surpassed its $120,000 goal, sitting at $156,000. This man used Kickstarter to fuel his dreams and get a better footing in the industry, and he can't even give them back rewards he's promised to give. His Instagram is private, his Facebook group is private, his Tumblr hasn't been touched since 2018, his Twitter has been suspended, the Kickstarter website hasn't been logged into since February, the Cannon Busters Twitter hasn't been used since April, and the last update to the Kickstarter was in 2018. He didn't even update them when the full anime came out. The Cannon Busters website, which he had since 2004, hasn't been paid for this month. I visited it myself a few weeks ago, but when I came back to it, it's gone. A lot of posts about Cannon Busters on Netflix and Kickstarter's Twitter have people in the comments complaining about not receiving their rewards, and they are completely ignored. The creator himself is now unreachable and doesn't seem to want to touch his Kickstarter. During the time his Kickstarters are being ignored, he's gone on to make projects like Children of Aether with Crunchyroll, and now working with big names like Lakeith Stanfield and Flying Lotus to make a new anime called Yasuke. Whether or not it was his intention, he used the black anime community and supporters of black creators to fuel the pilot for his anime. He later got a deal with Netflix and released a full series, and he still has not rewarded the people who brought him this far. In one of his Kickstarter videos, he mentioned that he ran out of funds. I don't think without that $150,000, he would have ever worked with someone like Lakeith Stanfield today. To add insult to injury, Cannon Busters merch is also being sold, meaning there are Cannon Buster projects which could have been given as rewards to his backers, but he has refused to do any of that at this point. Whether or not it's behind a contract, he hasn't updated anyone, and so it still looks really scummy to do such things. A lot of the news about the Kickstarter is also being blacked out because of LeSean Thomas's race and the industry that he's in.
Aside from the fact that Cannon Busters is the very first anime of its kind to be created, produced, and released by a black animator to a mainstream streaming service, it's the first anime to feature a cast of predominantly black and POC characters. What's more is that the characters themselves are authentically voiced by black and POC vocal talent.
It's sad to see someone's race being put over the quality of their content and their character. Maybe it's just me, but if the only reason people wanted my art was because I was black, I would be extremely disheartened. It's also sad to see that his race has given him a free ticket to treat people like this. And as black people, the people who this content is supposed to be for and supposed to represent, we should be more critical of it. One review opened my eyes and showed me that for most people in places like Japan, this is one of the first anime that is completely comprised of black people. So if this anime is our opener to conversation, how does it represent us? It shows us being incompetent. Look at how bad the animation gets. It shows us being stupid. Look at the choices these characters make. It shows us failing to understand how to craft a compelling story. It shows us blatantly ripping from the shows that inspired us growing up, rather than being able to use those inspirations to make our own unique stories. And maybe it's just a loud minority of people who haven't received their rewards, but there's still people who decided to support your endeavors and have brought you this far into your career. Still doesn't explain why them and the whole Kickstarter are being ignored, why the whole Cannon Busters community has now been thrown away for his new projects. Yes, LeSean Thomas has made big steps for black people in the animation and anime community, paving the way for other black creators in the industry. But when people want to see the best black anime and it's a lackluster project, or they want to see the best black artist, and he treats people who support him like this, he will and is having an effect on other black creators in the industry. Black excellence shouldn't be about being the first person to do something. It should be about how you did it and what you brought forward with what you did. Be careful who you support under the love for your people. Some people are just there to make a quick buck and leave. During my search, I came across one of the many tweets about Cannon Busters from Spaceman Hardy. Hardy has been very vocal about his support for Cannon Busters, going back as far as 2014 during the funding period of the Kickstarter. He kindly agreed to answer a few questions I had about the Kickstarter. Hardy had donated $35 to the Kickstarter, meaning he was eligible for a Cannon Busters poster and DVD for the pilot. Being somewhat aware of Hardy's situation concerning Cannon Busters, I skipped over the DVD but further inquired about the poster, as I had seen other people in the Kickstarter comments talk about receiving a link to a downloadable Cannon Busters poster. The downloadable poster, however, is only for pledges below $25, and Hardy has never received his physical poster. I asked Hardy if he could confirm that he was a backer and about the last bit of contact he had received from the Kickstarter campaign in the last few years. His answers aligned with the information I had gathered from the Kickstarter comments. A year ago, around the release of the anime, they sent an email to backers asking them to verify addressing information. This, combined with the anime's release, riled up backers thinking that they were finally going to receive their rewards. But it's been a year now and there has been no communication. In my own opinion, it seems like this email was sent to stop any bad publicity seeping out from angry backers. And once the anime dropped and rode its wave of popularity, they again cut contact with the backers. For my last question, I asked Hardy if he wanted me to hide his identity, but obviously, seeing as I've mentioned his name, he said no, and he wants people to know how upset he is. Again, I was going to end the video here, but I had an itch in the back of my head. LeSean Thomas's company, Make Stuff LLC, it had been plastered on some of the things I had seen during my searches. But during my searches, I had never come across a sign or even a website for the company, so I decided to do a bit more digging. And then the company only exists in name, on the Kickstarter, on some of the writers' LinkedIn, on LeSean Thomas's LinkedIn, but there is no link to the company website. Even the Cannon Busters website, which could have been under the company, is now gone. There is no way to find this company off a simple Google search. Everything I clicked on led me to a dead end. There were multiple Make Stuff LLCs spread across America, all of them dealing in different stuff like gospel music and painting. I looked for anything, any pictures, any legal documentation. I couldn't find anything for a few days. I ended up at the US Securities and Exchange Commission website at their company filing search, and I still found nothing. But after searching through the commission's company filings, I remembered something vital. America's states act like their own small countries. Remembering that LeSean Thomas' business was registered under California, I looked for California's own company filings. This was my last-ditch effort. If I couldn't find the company on California's filings, the company either didn't exist or it's one of the most secretive companies in existence. Now, my lazy ass didn't check how the search worked and searched for corporation name rather than LLC name. So my first search was empty and I almost gave up, but I really wanted to find this company. I went back to the search and found LLC name, searched for the company, and I found it. I had finally found this invisible company. Reading through some of the details, I didn't understand what had happened to it, but after a few Google searches, it made some sense. The company had been FTB suspended, meaning it had been suspended for business under the state of California. There's no specific reason given to why the suspension was handed, but it could be some tax issues LeSean was having, or because he hasn't filed an SI form in more than 2 years, which is necessary. And with that, I figured out everything I needed to know and closed this chapter. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. I know this video lacked a lot of structure. I didn't have a lot of fun making it, but I just wanted to get it off my chest.
Oh, it hurts! Oh, it's you that's causing my suffering. Then if I tear you to pieces, the pain